Okay. We're working on bedtime around here. With my own person with autism who is 11 and a half. So I'm Adrienne Wood. I have a blog, Tales of an Educated Debutante. I have recently written a book with two friends, Kate Swenson and Carrie Curiello. It is called Autism Out Loud. And as of last week, it is a New York Times bestseller. Even if I had to actually write it in there myself, it really is one. But you won't actually see it officially until it's reprinted. I tonight had a book signing over in Elizabeth City. I live in pretty rural eastern North Carolina. And my co-author also had a book signing. And then we usually have a trifecta, but it was just crazy tonight. So I'm just doing a video on my own. So I had a book signing tonight, and I had lots of speech therapists there. I had educators. I had occupational therapists, but mainly families. Hold on, let me let the dog in. And they're all families like mine, but in different parts of the struggle, right? And one mom was saying that her daughter had a meltdown earlier today because something was in the cup holder in the car. And I thought, wow, when she said that to me, I thought, my friend Kate just commented, I thought that book was written by Kate Swenson. Just because Kate's name is at the top doesn't mean the last is not least here. So anyway, I understand like a cup holder could be a problem, right? So there is something in the news that's been happening. We've been selling a book. But today I had a little bit of time and delved into the news story. There are many news stories, but one very recent one is the death of an autistic Idaho teen who was also had cerebral palsy and was shot by police last week. It was on April 12th. No, he died on April 12th. He was shot a couple days on April 7th. What? Okay. So when you belong to a person with autism, I think you don't gravitate towards stories like this, right? You don't gravitate towards shows like Love on the Spectrum, The Good Doctor. I don't know. They all just feel a little bit, say, cringy. And that's just my opinion, but it feels like that to me. So anyway, we had heard about the story. Immediately, you get lots of people sending you messages and telling you things. And I thought, it's too much. So it's been a week. So today I watched the video for the first time. And the video is available. So Jill said, it's awful. So many were in danger. So Jill, I watched the video, and granted, I'm a mama of 4 children. I have a 17-year-old who's typically developing. This child was 17 with cerebral palsy. And so let's just talk about what happened. And I watched the video myself. So I think the benefit is when we have a video, we can really see. So I was watching this video. Victor Perez was in his yard, and what happened was a witness called 911 at 5:22 in the afternoon, and the witness told the dispatcher, there's a man, so the word man is used immediately, right? There's a man with a kitchen knife who, quote, seemed pretty drunk and was chasing people around in a backyard. And you can listen to the audio call. So, hold on, I'm gonna block a couple people just because I can. Okay. So the police get these calls. They don't know what they're walking into, right? So they get a call, a 911 call that says, hey, there's a drunk guy chasing people with a knife, drunk man chasing people with a knife in the backyard. And the police show up. And when the police show up, there's a woman that has got a stick, and the boy is on the ground, and she's trying to knock this pretty large knife out of his hand with a stick. And so a neighbor is videoing this. So this is not body cam. There's a neighbor videoing what's happening in the yard. And then the police kind of pull up, and the person videoing is behind them. And so four police officers jump out of the car. And within 14 seconds, 9 shots had been fired. And 14 seconds. We're just going to stop for a minute and do 14 seconds. There was 14 seconds. So that was the amount of time between the police getting out of their patrol cars, and there was no apparent effort to de-escalate the situation or use less lethal weapons. The police chief, Roger Shea, said, "We are aware of the video circulating online, which shows only one angle. The full picture requires careful review of all facts and evidence." The police chief went on to say the threat to police officers was immediate and justified their shooting. What I saw at the 44-second mark, or what I heard, were 4 officers that said, "Drop the knife." The boy was on the ground. He struggled to stand up and moved towards the officers. They began firing. What the police chief says is, in this case, 2 individuals were within a few feet of an armed, non-compliant individual. The risk was immediate. The situation was rapidly evolving. What I think is really important about this is that there was a chain link fence, and I'm not talking about like a little one to keep out bunny rabbits, a chain link fence that was shoulder height between the 4 officers and the boy with autism holding the knife. And the police chief is saying the threat was immediate. And all I could think about was, have you ever been to the circus or been to the zoo? And you go to the circus and you see, I guess they don't even have circuses anymore. I'm 50. So let's say you go to the zoo. And when you go to the zoo, there are fences. And at the circus, there used to be like basically a cage, and there were lions behind the cage, right? And you can walk up to the cage, maybe a few feet away, but the lion is behind the cage. And nobody shoots the lion when it roars, right? Because they recognize there's a cage. So even if this boy had been holding a gun, you might say he was holding a gun and waving a gun, and there was danger. I would say, I agree, you're right. This was a knife. A knife is not going to kill people from feet away behind a fence. That is just absolute logic, right? This isn't about if you're married to a policeman. If I were a policeman, I would be horrified that this had happened. Parents that drown their autistic children, I don't defend the parents that drown their autistic children, right? I can say, boy, this is really hard and we need to get parent services, but I don't ever say a parent was justified. Amos, honey, Amos. Amos, you need to quiet your voice a little bit. The woman was close to him. So it was the woman in the backyard, but at that point, he was waving the knife at the police officers. 14 seconds. So, well, let's just say you're waving a knife. What else could you do? Could you tase someone?
Be quiet.
I didn't say be quiet. Just lower your voice a little bit, okay?
No. I'm too dangerous criminals.
Come here.
Watch out for bad guys.
Come here. Come here. Sit down.
No. I'm too dangerous criminals.
Are you a dangerous criminal?
No. No. No at all.
No. Oh, excuse me.
You want to admit no, too dangerous criminals.
That's right. Okay. Shh. So I have the caller was a neighbor, and the person that was trying to get the knife away from him was a family member. And let's listen to what the family member said. So, well, actually, let's go back. When the teenager turned towards police and began standing up, the officers yelled, "Drop the knife, drop the knife." He began to approach the offense, so he was walking away from the person that he was with in the yard, and he was walking towards the police. The police video has not been released. So Rita, I am totally going on the video that I saw that very clearly shows the child with cerebral palsy, because people with cerebral palsy do stumble, right? And we can't just shoot people because they look drunk, right? He had cerebral palsy. And it's not about a complete investigation. The police were behind a fence. There was no threat to them. He had a knife and they were behind a fence. Here's what I think, and this is my opinion. He didn't follow their instructions. They said, "Drop the knife, drop the knife." He did not follow their instructions, which is what the police chief said. Well, the police chief said on April 7th, he's changed the story a little bit. Perez did not comply with repeated commands to drop the knife. That was the first reason that he was shot, according to the police chief. He did not comply with repeated commands to drop the knife. But if people with autism don't comply with repeated commands, does that mean they should be killed? I would say no. In this case, there were multiple individuals within a few feet of an armed, non-compliant individual. The risk was immediate. Disabled people may not be able to immediately comply with police demands. Police can respond to a delay. What we saw was police responding to the delay with deadly violence. I think we have to help people, neighbors and police. Just because a person is acting unusually doesn't mean that this was necessary. An hour of learning about autism cannot overcome the months of training that teaches police that in uncertain situations, the first thing they should do is to escalate force, is to exert control. So autism-specific trainings don't necessarily do the trick, you know? Leanne McKinley is the director of ARC Disability, and she's the director of the Disability and Justice Initiative. And one thing that she talks about is that in this case, you had a 17-year-old who was in a bad spot, and he needed an intervention. That's what he needed. And instead, he was shot multiple times. What do we do? If you think it's more autism training, only 20 states actually require law enforcement training on intellectual and developmental disabilities. But then people will tell you the trainings are not standardized, which means some officers get trained, some don't. The neighbor that called police apologized later. I think the neighbor that called police was genuinely concerned. I think they were concerned, you know. Autistic advocacy, according to the ARC, they say we urge the public to think twice before calling the police, especially on a disabled person of color. Now, in this case, the neighbor didn't know that Victor Perez had cerebral palsy and autism. But his family did not call the police, which is really interesting. So they had a family reunion happening, and no one in the family had called the police. And they maintained that they were working through the situation because they didn't want to get police intervention. There are many ways to deal with conflicts other than calling the police. So what happened, according to Anna Vasquez, who was the boy's aunt, they had a family barbecue. They had a knife. They were cutting like steak or pork or something. And they had put the knife away because they thought, oh, well, he found the knife and then they couldn't get it away from him. And his sister said, the neighbor called the cops so the police could help us. He didn't know. So people are asking, no one from the family told police he was autistic. So I think it's worth noting that I counted and it was 14 seconds. The news is reporting it was 12 seconds. So there was only 12 seconds. And when the police didn't knock on the door and say, hey, we're here to help you. The police jumped out of their cars. I mean, you can watch the video yourself. Ran to the fence, dropped the knife. Bang, 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 bang. This wasn't, we're going to tase you, we're going to, it could have been deadly. Wielding the knife is unusual. But Kimberly, it wasn't deadly to the police officers. The police chief said on that day, the threat was immediate. 2 individuals were within a few feet of an armed, non-compliant individual. He also said Perez did not comply with repeated commands to drop the knife. And what that tells me is these officers never even thought for a minute that this person might have a physical disability that would cause them to stumble, or that this person had autism and may not be able to follow commands. So he was walking towards the police officers. And again, think of a lion in a cage at the circus, and a lion is walking towards the cage. Does anybody shoot the lion? No. They don't shoot the lion. He had the knife. The person that had been trying to get the knife out of his hand was behind him. So I don't need to see, I'm watching the video. There's no other angle. He's walking like this towards the police officers who were behind the fence. I don't know, 6 or 8 feet away. He's behind a fence. And they shot him because he didn't follow their commands. Watch the video. If you watch the video and you say to me, boy, if I were a police officer, I would have been scared to death. I'd love for you to reach out because I would really, that's not what it was like. No one is in the cage with the lion. The lion, if you want to refer to a child with cerebral palsy holding a knife as a lion, which I said it's like a lion in a cage, was not moving towards the young woman. Tasing could be an option. I don't think the family was screaming, stop, stop, stop. I don't think the family even had time to think about the fact that they're going to come in and shoot him. So long ago, years ago, Amos was really de-escalated. We didn't have medicine in the right place. And I had a knife on the counter, and Amos picked up the knife and he threw it, and it hit me in the back, and it nicked me. And he was, I don't know, maybe 7 at the time, and my whole family was standing there, and I just cried. I cried because I thought, this is dangerous. But nobody in my family would have shot him, you know? So I belong to the person, you know, that's held a knife as a weapon. And, you know, it's just, it's a travesty. It's a travesty. Is it about training? If we're learning that trainings aren't all the same. Rebecca says the grandfather tried to tell them, but they didn't listen. I didn't hear that on the video, but I only watched it twice. I just couldn't watch it again. But when you think of 12 to 14 seconds, what happens in 12 to 14 seconds? I have never given anyone in my family a command that they did within 12 to 14 seconds. You know, and I think if this were the first time this had happened, you know, I think we might be more like, wow, yeah, this was unusual. But, you know, there was a young man with autism that was, had a hoodie on and was coming back from the Zip Mart years ago. His name was Elijah. And police, you know, were asking him what he was doing. They thought maybe he had stolen something. And he said, I don't do well with people. I can't answer questions. He was advocating for himself. And they put him down on the ground, and I guess like a chokehold, and he died. So the video, the video is on NBC. You can Google the video. It's been shared everywhere. Yeah, thank you, Nell. Nell said education and training is imperative, as well as a change in culture for mental health and disability circumstances. Take yourself down to the police station and register your autistic person. You know, I totally agree, Eileen, but I just wonder if every time police officers get a call, and this is something we could ask, I guess, our local, this would be a good advocacy thing. If you get a call that something's happening on my street, you know, on Water Street, do you immediately look up to see who lives in the house? You know, how would you know that? You know, I don't know. Yeah, he died in the hospital. His family took him off life support, and they amputated his leg in hopes that they could save him, and they couldn't. Um, yeah, if you live in New York City, not practical. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Oh, I didn't know that. He used to live in Surrey County. Um, yeah, we don't really, in our book, Autism Out Loud, which has just been out a week, we tell the story, three moms of three boys, very different places on the spectrum. We have kind of stereotypical high functioning, nonverbal, and my Amos, who's in the middle. And I think just having these conversations, you know, about these things are so important. I don't think there's a one size fits all. If a police department does training, what if a new officer shows up the next month? If, you know, what else could be done? I don't know, you know, I don't know. But it just didn't. If it had been me, I don't know. I think I also would have thought, like, boy, there's a person on the ground with a knife. There's another person with a stick trying to get the knife away. So the person could have run away from the person with the knife. I think I would almost think, okay, well, how long has this been going on? Do I need to shoot and kill in 12 seconds? You know? Anyway. I just want us to have a conversation about it and share it and encourage people to buy Autism Out Loud. I would hope that today we're trying to get this book into schools and police departments. You know, I hope that all officers, sheriff's offices, police officers, mental health counselors have an opportunity to read this from a family's perspective and maybe get a taste of what life is really like, you know, and maybe learn, like, boy, it doesn't always look like it should. Yeah, if one officer had said, can I help you? Does this person have special needs? I mean, you know, just one little question. Yes, he has autism. You know, just a simple question before you kill somebody. You had 12 seconds. Just ask one question, you know, one question. 9 shots. 9 shots. Put a sticker in your window. I don't think they would have seen the sticker. They didn't even go to the door. They didn't go to the door. Social workers, counselor, child psychologist. And you know, it's hard to tell the real stories. And I think hearing this, like me telling you tonight that Amos threw a knife that hit me in the back, and nobody wants to tell a story like that. It's embarrassing, and it's terrible, and it's worrisome. And we think if we tell stories like that, people will alienate our children or not trust them or like them, you know, and we just need help. I mean, I was sitting talking to mothers tonight about chapter 4, you know, anxiety and medication and education, you know, anyway. We have to tell and share the truth so that we can help people understand what's happening, you know. So anyway, thanks for listening, and just, it didn't have to end like that. It didn't have to end like that.